So we are live on Facebook. At least I think we are. My name is Sheila Caldwell, and I am the president and founder of the Heart to Heart Foundation. We are a grassroots organization serving here the Charlotte metro area, the state of South Carolina, and through our Red Heart Mamas group, women all over the country. And that is a free grassroots advocacy group that we encourage women over 18 to join. It is by women, for women. We like it that way. In case you aren't familiar with the Heart to Heart Foundation, my backstory is pretty simple. I survived a heart attack at the age of 50. And during my period of recovery, going to cardiac rehabilitation, I realized that in our local community, in our area, there really had not been a focused effort to help increase awareness about specifically women's heart health, but heart health in general. And that was something that we wanted to change. So we started the Heart to Heart Foundation for two reasons. One, we wanted to place a very strong emphasis on awareness, education, early detection, and teaching people the warning signs of impending heart attack or stroke so that we could prevent premature death. It started out with the women, quickly grew to include the men and the children, and our mission statement is to inspire and enable women and their loved ones to take action that prevents heart attack, stroke, and premature death. So today we are celebrating Heart Month 2021, which is awesome. It is our favorite time of the year because it's the time of the year when people seem to be paying attention to heart health, to heart disease. And even with COVID-19, people still have heart disease. They are still having heart attacks. They are still having cardiac events and needing interventions. And we want to share our message with you this month. So please go to the hearttoheartfoundation.org. There's lots of information there that you can download. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love for you to do that so you can see other educational videos we have. And during the month, we're going to be telling you more about how you can get your heart health checked and get a risk assessment. And we're going to be talking to you about advanced screening. So there's lots of information coming out all during the month of February. So we thought this year we would do something kind of fun this week. And so on Mondays, we have a segment that we're doing via Zoom and also Facebook Live here at our Heart to Heart Facebook page called Meatless Mondays. So if you missed that episode, you can go back and find that on our YouTube channel or here on our Facebook page. And that was a great show. Today is Tuesday. So we are doing Tiara Tuesday. And so a lot of people want to know with the Tiara Tuesdays, and we have our largest awareness and fundraising event coming up, the Queen of Hearts Gala every year during February. And so they want to know, what's up with the tiaras? Well, it's really quite simple. We believe in self-care, and we also believe in positive affirmation. So we believe that each woman in her own right is her own queen. We all have the ability to inspire others, to encourage others, and to make a difference in our families and in our communities in our own way. Because here's the truth, ladies, there are women in your lives that I'll never meet. I'll never know them. I'll never have a chance to personally share our message of hope and prevention with them, but you can. That's where our Red Heart Mamas come in too, is training you how to share that message. But it all first begins with us. It's kind of like when you're on an airplane and you remember they tell you that if something happens, you lose pressure in the cabin and that oxygen mask falls down from the ceiling. What are you supposed to do? Yeah, our instincts is to put it on our kids, to put it on our husband, to put it on our traveling companion before we do it ourselves. That's a mistake that we make with our self-care over and over again. And promise me, a story for another day. I was the queen of that. But self-care has to be a priority in our lives. So we put that oxygen mask on ourselves first before we can help others. So that's our message for you today. When you put on that tiara, remember, you are first of all the queen of your own heart before you can become the queen for others' hearts in your life. So today is Tiara Tuesday. We wanted to dedicate today to talking to other women about their heart stories. It could be someone who's had a heart attack and survived like I did. It could be somebody who's had a bypass or a transplant, or it could be a caregiver. You may know or not know that I am one of the survivors, have heart champions through the AstraZeneca program that is done with Bob Harper from The Biggest Loser. And I'm honored to be a part of that group of survivors. But a big part of our focus with Survivors Have Heart are the caregivers. So I am really excited today. I am going to bring her on camera finally. Heather Connor. Welcome, Heather. How are you today? You're going to need to unmute for me.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi. I am awesome. You know, I think that's one of the fun things about our virtual worlds. It's like we need a little shirt, or maybe I get one of those little selfie signs that says unmute. Everybody does it. You forget, you get engaged in the conversation. But thank you so much for joining us. And Heather and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of weeks. She is the owner and creator and the entrepreneur that created Awesome Blossoms over in Fort Mill. So Heather, let's begin by first getting to know a little bit more about you.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for asking me to join, and love the tiara. Just definitely changes your attitude in the morning. So this is a whole lot of fun. So I am, yes, I am the owner of Awesome Blossoms, but I am a caretaker. So all those things that you said about taking care of yourself, and I went through all of that, but not with just one person, but two at the same time in my family. And so I didn't take care of myself and realized that I needed to, because they were relying on me to do that. So that was really kind of a good message for me. Thank you this morning. I appreciate it. I kind of needed that.
You are absolutely welcome. So, you know, as you shared your story with me, you know, I was really intrigued because a lot of people know that as a heart attack survivor, you know, that's one piece of it. And then a couple of years, several years after my heart attack, through a calcium score, a 10-minute scan, we discovered that my husband, who on paper was not somebody you would think of as being at risk of a heart attack and possibly a fatal heart attack, we discovered that he had heart disease. And again, we'll tell that story a different day. And then a few years after that, we wound up having to do intervention, and he did receive a triple bypass that saved his life. We would have never known it had it not been for that 10-minute scan that cost less than a pair of running shoes. And so that was miraculous in itself. So as you shared your story with me, I was thinking, wow, what you went through is just absolutely remarkable as a caregiver. So tell us your heart story.
Oh, it's a little lengthy. So I have my 14-year-old daughter. First of all, everybody is healthy now and back on track. But this was 14 years ago. I had a rainbow baby and had several miscarriages up to her. And when she was born, she was 2 weeks early, but she was perfectly healthy. No problems in the pregnancy. I was high risk because of all of the miscarriages. And so I was under great care. Unfortunately, when she was born, she had 6 VSDs, which are basically holes in her heart. And so you have this perfect little baby who you finally are so excited to have. And then she has this heart condition. So they did really well. They said that they thought she would grow out of it. It wasn't going to be a big deal. And in my mind, I was an older but new mom. And I thought, well, okay, maybe this is just, one, because she was early, 2, because I had the history, but we'll just watch her. Doctors don't seem to be, concerned or anything like that. And then 3 months later, a week before my anniversary, my husband came home at the time, and the baby and I were kind of playing, and she was good. She didn't have any problems, but we were still kind of watching her, and she had, biweekly visits, no big deal. She was growing well, but he came home and he said, can you feel my pulse? And because I had a little bit of education like that in college. And I said, you seem fine. What's going on? And he said, I can't breathe and my left shoulder is killing me. And I said, well, you have had a cold. Maybe it just went into your lungs and you've got bronchitis. No big deal. Well, that was a nice March spring afternoon. By about 2 hours later, he said he was going to lay down. Short story is that he got violently ill. And I said, that's it. I'm calling an ambulance, only for the fact that one, he does not get sick. And two, he would have made it to the restroom and didn't. And so I was like, okay, something's not right. And so I called the hospital. I put the baby in the carriage, followed the ambulance all the way, thought, okay, he's really healthy. He was 41 when this all happened, fit, super solid, he was an entrepreneur. Life was great. We had a brand new baby. I didn't expect any of this. We get to the hospital and I get out of the ambulance and he goes, man, that nitroglycerin is good. And I went, oh boy. We're done. So I called my in-laws, got the baby taken care of because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Long story short, he was 98% blocked in his widowmaker. 3 days later, he had a quadruple bypass at 41 years old, self-employed, and I quit work when the baby came. So now we're down to one income. And it was the longest 4 days of, I was still nursing at the time too. So there was a lot going on in those 4 day time frame. The joke was that a week later was our anniversary. And I asked him if he wanted to do something. He said, I just spent $200,000 for a camping trip. So I don't think you need to do anything. And I was like, okay, not a problem. But what I did not realize was the caretaker piece. So I felt so bad for him and trying to heal. We did all the nutrition classes. We did all of the things that we needed to do, as well as taking care of the baby. And now I had to jump in and take care of the business because we were the only ones there and making sure that he was okay. So the person that got kind of left behind was me. So that's why I said your story this morning really kind of hit home. Our biggest problem was that the nurses said because of his age, he was either going to go for the girlfriend in the Ferrari or he would hit a really hard piece of depression. So expect change. I was not prepared for the level of depression that came. And so we worked through that. A couple of years later, we did get a divorce. We parted ways amicably, but it's been what we found out through this whole thing is that he has a history of 5 years prior. So he had one at 41. His dad had one at 46, but we didn't think anything of it because his dad smoked heavily and, that kind of thing. The generation before that would have been 51. And so now here's my daughter with the VSDs. So she has had cardiac care since until she was like 7 or 8. We're very cautious about sports, but she has a very normal life. Everything is good, but they have said that she needs to get a baseline at 30 just to make sure that she didn't take that side of the family's heart things. So we are we're probably not as good as we should be, but I am very picky about what she eats and how she acts and how she's hydrated and all of those things, because I would hate to think that at 30 years old, she could lose her life as easily just because of a hereditary thing. And we knew nothing about it. It just kind of happened. And literally the doctor said, had I not called the ambulance, he would have been dead in 2 hours.
And remarkably, and I know you're going to believe this, would you believe that 80% of American women and men who have a heart attack before the age of 65, first of all, they don't survive it.
Really?
But most of us who have a heart attack younger don't even know. We had no clue that we had heart disease or that we were at risk of a heart attack until we have one.
Wow. Okay.
And we're talking about the majority of Americans. So you and your husband are not alone in this journey. And as I shared with you, when we were talking, we talked about how young your husband was. My dad was 42 when he had his first heart attack, and our family history of heart disease just goes way back like his does. And he was 51 when he actually had a heart transplant. And what we are seeing today And the reason why this conversation is so important is that cardiologists are telling us that there is good news. The good news is there are fewer people dying from heart attacks. Now, keep in mind, we still lose over 635,000 American women and men to heart disease every year.
Every year?
But every year.
Oh my.
And so when you look at the fact that fewer are dying, and that's because of early interventions, that's because we're getting to them sooner. Like with my husband, we're catching it before the heart attack happens. But the troubling information is, and this is what we have a cardiologist who is our medical advisor, and what he has shared with me and what he is seeing in their practice is that the heart attacks are coming younger and younger and younger. And several of our team members, have worked in cardiac rehabilitation for years, and it's not unusual for them to see somebody 29 years of age coming in for cardiac rehabilitation. So that early detection piece, which is our number one priority with our mission, is so critically important. So with your husband, I'm going to come back to your daughter in a second, but with your ex-husband, did he have a clue of what his family history was?
Well, yes and no. There are a couple of generations that are missing. They're kind of a family that lives in the middle of the mountains, and there wasn't a whole lot of healthcare and that kind of thing. But he did know about his dad. But again, his dad was a bus driver, and he was a very, very heavy smoker, and so he just kind of put all that together. And my ex-husband, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he was super fit. The only thing that really was kind of a clue is that we moved kind of shortly after this, about 6 months after, and he made a comment about moving the nursery. And he said, "Man, this is so much easier than it was in October when we were putting the nursery together." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It was so heavy in October." So I'm wondering if something wasn't already happening in October and it just came to fruition in March.
That could be it. And I'll tell you one of the other things that whenever we are coaching someone about what screenings to get, especially for men is when they get to about their mid 40s, in addition to the coronary artery calcium scans, we also encourage them to talk to their doctors about getting the advanced lipid profile, which checks the lipoprotein a. Because as in the case with Bob Harper, my husband had an elevated lipoprotein a. I've heard of others in our community who have had heart attacks at young ages. And when they've gone back and looked at that genetic link, that was there. There might be nothing on paper. They might be fit. You might be looking at them and they look wonderful, but on the inside, they have disease and they don't know it. And so for people that are listening to this and they're thinking, oh my gosh, that family history of heart disease, I want to make sure we help you understand that and that was my greatest risk factor, by the way, was that family history of early heart disease. But when we're talking about that, what we're talking about is this. If your father or brother had a cardiac event before the age of 55, or your mother or sister before the age of 65, that's what we consider to be key in the risk factor for the family history of early heart disease. Because I get that question a lot. I'll have somebody that says, I'm really concerned about my heart health because my grandmother had a heart attack when she was 80. And we hate to hear that news, but the good news is that doesn't mean that you're predisposed to that. And genetics is not a foregone conclusion, just like having good genetics and not taking care of your body will give you a free pass either. But that's what we're talking about with early heart disease. So in the case of your husband, because of his father's history of smoking. And the other thing to keep in mind is that if he grew up in a household with cigarette smoke, for those that smoke, we know that that's the number one cause of early death in Americans, but it also affects the people that are exposed to secondhand smoke. Mm-hmm. Yes. So that counts as a risk factor as well. So with your husband, and I'm glad you mentioned the piece about depression, because I think, whenever, and women can go through that too, by the way, it's not just the men, but we do see it a lot more in men that the depression kicks in after they've had a cardiac event. And that's something that typically, as the spouse or caregiver of that patient, that they pull you aside and they kind of give you a heads up. This may be something that you see. How did you get him through that? Because I know that's the physical part. They can go to cardiac rehab. You can improve their nutrition. They can start exercising again. But that mental health component, that depression, is so hard sometimes to deal with. How did you handle all that?
Well, I mean, we, at the time, the other kicker part about this is that this was 2008 and he was in real estate. So we had lots of things happening at one time. So he had a heart attack, which he was okay with. And honestly, my daughter at the time was daddy's girl. And I actually told the nurses, if you want him out of here in 4 days, I need a private room and I need to be able to bring her up here whenever I want so that he will get out or he will have nothing to live for. And I was absolutely right. And the nurses were like, I've never seen anything like that. I said, the minute she would come in the room, he would just light up and I'd get me out of bed and now I have to be a dad. And so that was really exciting and encouraging that she, although that's a lot of pressure to put on a 3-month-old, right, to heal her dad. So we worked on that. And then I think our biggest problem was that everything just kind of hit at one time, but all of his friends, well, apparently so-called friends, at the time, they weren't really friends because I think it was too close to them. Oh my gosh, if that happened to Pat, that could happen to us. And I don't want to be associated with that. And so while he wanted people to talk to and he wanted to kind of say, I need some help and I don't know what to do, everybody abandoned him. And so he just kind of went into this inward withdrawal. And I did the best I could with, trying to keep the business going. I tried to make sure that he was, let's go walk, let's talk, let's think about, let's plan a trip, let's do something to give you something to look forward to. And unfortunately, that was kind of the demise of our marriage. Is just, I tried as very much as I could, but he just had a mindset that this, oh, poor me. And so, but a couple of years after the divorce, the good story about that is the couple of years after the story, he realized he missed his family. And while we are much happier in separate homes, he is so involved with his daughter. He's a good dad. He's a great provider. Like he really kind of pulled himself out of it, but it was a lesson for me that as much as I wanted to, he has to want it just as bad as I do. But he also realized what's important in life. And so that it turns out to be a good ending. It was a long few years, but we've gotten through it and they have a very tight relationship and I couldn't be happier.
So how many years ago was this?
This was 14.
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
He
was
was
a while.
Yeah, so he's in his 50s now. How's he doing health-wise, if you can share?
Now. Well, after his surgery, he had a lot of health issues. So I don't know if you've had problems with that, but basically the nurses said, well, we kind of cut him open and it made everything else kind of come to light. So he had a really hard time with diabetes. He had some spleen issues. We've probably been in and out of ICU, I don't know, half a dozen times in the last 10 years. So there've been some very close calls. But just like when he had his heart attack, his will to live is his daughter. And so that is really encouraging to me, but he's on a better track. He's taking much better care of himself. He's really changed who he is and wants to be. But yeah, it's just been one thing after another for him. And it was hard to watch, but he wasn't going to allow me to kind of support him either. And so that was why we kind of had to part ways, but everything's good now. And what I didn't realize that all of the health issues could come up afterwards. You have a surgery and now all of a sudden, whoops, now you have diabetes and whoops, this was already there, but it was dormant and now we've opened it up. And so that was another couple of years of dealing with all of that. But yeah, overall, it's been a good experience. And like I said, they have a great relationship and she doesn't get to see him very often because he's out of state, but we make every opportunity possible for him to be in her life.
So you were going through all of this and it just boggles my mind of how you went through this with your husband then at that age. With a 3-month-old, with a newborn that has
Right.
heart,
And so
cardiac
watching
issues.
her on a monitor at night, making sure she's breathing and everything okay, and then watching him, making sure he's getting up in the middle of the night. And so, yeah, there was probably about 6 months where I'm very thankful that her first moments are all on video camera, because I don't really have any memories of her until about 18 months old. So just because we were in the, trying to do all of this at one time, I was just trying to keep everybody alive and a business going too.
And a business going. So I guess the pervasive question that everybody is probably asking themselves is, how did you get through it? Was your faith? Did you have a support system? I mean, were you all alone? Did you have family around you? How did you cope through all of this?
I did not have any family around me. I had his parents, and they were very helpful with, every couple of days, I would say, can you take the baby for a few hours just so that I can breathe or take a nap or, whatever. And of course, she's the only grandbaby, so they were more than happy to take the baby. And they were wonderful taking her while we were in the hospital, those kinds of things. But honestly, I grew up military, so you adapt and overcome.
Yes.
And you figure it out. And I've kind of always had that perseverant attitude. I made a commitment that I was going to be married to this man, and I made a commitment that I have this sweet little baby, and this is what God has handed me. And so part of it was faith. At the time, it sounds kind of silly, but I belonged to a bunco group, which they were amazing women, and they were phenomenal. Not all the time, but they were good. If I had to go to rehab and take him to rehab, they'd watch the baby so it wouldn't mess up her nap, or they would come by and drop casserole and diapers, and just ring the bell and leave. So they didn't want to bother me, but they knew I wasn't at a point where I could ask for help, because, and I don't know if you kind of experience this either. You're so in it, you don't really know how to ask for help. You don't really know what you need. And so, but I would just be so thankful. But that was kind of a pinpoint for him, because, why are his friends leaving and my friends are being supportive? And he didn't understand all of that. And it was different relationships. But I think looking back on that, I probably would have raised a white flag a little sooner and said, I need some help, but we did what we could. And I just kind of got through it. And every day I just expected it to be better. And I've had, surgeries in the past and things like that. And I just thought, well, every day you get a little better, and it'll work itself out eventually, and we'll figure it out. It was a rough, I would say probably about 8 months that we just really had to kind of buckle down and figure it out. And then on top of that, because the market crashed, we went to 10% of our income in 90 days. So it was just this constant readjust. Now, what are we going to do? What do we need to do? It was just a lot of, which is kind of funny because that set me up for the business now. All those experiences. But it was just in it. And I think I was just in survival mode, that it was going to work. I wasn't going to give up on anybody. And I was going to do the best I could to make sure that we were a family again.
What a story. So let's talk about your daughter. She's now 14? Oh my, yes. Teenager.
She's awesome. God knew exactly what he was doing when he gave her to me. During COVID, she was my office manager. So she was taking calls and logistics and, all that. But she has been not just a rainbow baby, but my miracle baby. Because there are days where her smile just helped me get through. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where we're at. But she's in middle school now, doing great. She's not an athletic kid, which kind of works out in my favor, so that I'm not worried all the time. But she's more into the arts and kind of producing and videos and, things like that. So she's a great kid. She has her head on straight, but I've been very honest with her about her dad's health. I've been very honest with her about her health. I've been incredibly communicative about what needs to be happening when she's older. And this is why I'm doing the things now, so that later on you're not going to hopefully you don't have as much trouble, as I did, kind of thing. So, but yeah, she's just a great kid.
So as a newborn, with her issues, what did they do for her at that time?
They really said nothing, that they were just going to watch her. They didn't think it was any big deal. She went to an actual cardiologist from the age of 1 to 7, and we did EKGs twice a year, just to make sure. Right now, she's got a heart murmur, but it's very faint. So apparently everything's closed up. They are a little concerned about scar tissue, but not anything that has said she can't do anything. If she does do sports, we've just said that she tends to get a little overheated, and make sure she, sits back a second and gets some water and hydrated. But other than that, she has a very normal life, and nobody would ever really know. She has, I guess the only thing that I've noticed is that I'll be freezing and she'll be hot. So she has a very hot body temperature. I had a teacher call me out one day because she only had a sweatshirt on and it was really cold. And I was like, she actually wears layers because she knows how to do her own body temperature so she doesn't overheat. But other than that, we haven't had any problems. And now that she's older, they only have her go to the cardiologist once every 5 years. So,
that's remarkable. Now, is she on any medications to regulate anything?
I've been very, very blessed. No medications,
Wow.
no, nothing. It was literally just a monitor to watch her over the first 8 months to a year, just to make sure she was breathing. And yeah, I am very, very thankful that whether you call it healing or whether that she just grew out of it, I will take whatever you call it, because I'm very thankful for that she's here with me every day, and that we don't have any problems, no medication, none of that right now.
So, with a lot of teenagers, one of the big struggles that parents have is getting them to eat well, eating right and drinking water and all of that. Is she pretty compliant in that area for you?
Well, because of the business and because I was kind of focused on that, I threw her into a new role of cooking dinner. And part of that cooking dinner is that we buy the pre-boxed one, like the companies that have the pre-boxes. And so I go through it. She said, "Hey, Mom, what about this one? Do you like this one?" So she's learning vegetables and starches and very good balanced in portions. And I make her cook dinner. I do the dishes. I don't have a problem with that. But she's cooking and learning. And then with all the ingredients, she's seeing what's in there in her heart health. So she's doing really well. The water we're still working on. But the actual having her cook, she's a little more aware of different things that she needs to do. And now she's starting to break out my cookbooks and, things like that. So
that is a wonderful life skill to have, and it's never too early to start them. So a question for you, a personal question for you. If you had advice to give to other women who are in that caregiver role, give us your best advice.
Well, two things. I think one, call your friends. They don't know you need help unless your friends or family, whoever it is, call. Somebody will be there and they will help you and listen. And even if it's just, I just need to get out and not see my house, contact those around you, because nobody needs to do that by themselves. And the other thing is that whole self-care. Had I escaped for an hour and let myself just soak in a tub, I probably would have been a better mom, or taking a walk around the block or something that was just about me for an hour. I probably would have been better at doing what I'm doing and not feeling so frazzled, where I could have made better decisions and probably not been quite as emotional as I was. But I think just those two things, had I been in a situation where I had to do it over again, I definitely would have asked for help. Even if they said no, at least I asked, and figured it out. But I probably would have been a little more educated. It sounds like there's a lot more education now than there was back then. So definitely support groups, even if that becomes your friends and family, they get it, right? I've said to tons of friends, there is nothing harder than the caretaker job. Because you still have to keep life going while they're trying to get better and be back to normal. So just make sure you take care of you, but reach out to those people and find support somehow, because it will mentally, you need to be in the game in order to do what you have to do.
And remarkably, by the way, you had every right to be emotional. By the way, that's okay too. Remarkably, when you talk to other women about self-care, about carving out time to make them number one at that moment. It might just be 15 minutes that day,
Right.
So some days we take
Right.
what we can get. But do you know the feedback that we get over and over again when we start talking about self-care are two things. One, how do I do that? And two, how do I not feel guilty about it?
It's a big balance because we're kind of designed to take care of everybody else. And you don't realize, like you said, with the oxygen mask, it's just natural, especially if you're a mom and you're a wife, that's what you do. You take care of your family, and that's how we're designed in nature. And so to say, you know what, it's okay. It wasn't until I actually started doing it and came back and was like, okay, I can do this now. I got this. Like I'm ready to go. This is going to be a good day, that I realized that I needed to do it more often, because it was like a love language type of thing. Everything in me was so depleted. I didn't have anything left to give. And so I had to recharge my batteries so that I could give again, because there was just no energy left in me.
I'll tell you that, and you're going to enjoy this. My granddaughter will probably laugh if she watches this, but especially this time of the year, but typically I'm on all cylinders. And once I recovered from the heart attack, once I recovered from the heart attack, and they gave me permission to resume normal activities, but they didn't ask what normal was for me. I feel like I've probably been in a dead run ever since. And most of my friends would say yes. And I do have those friends who we have a special relationship that when I am going too far down the track, and even sometimes my husband will try to help correct me on that track. But I'm bad about really practicing that self-care and slowing down sometimes. And I remember it was about this time last year, as a matter of fact, one of our granddaughters, she was 14 at the time, so funny coincidence. And we're running around and we're busy, and I'm getting ready for programs. And I evidently, I must have looked very frazzled and very tired and stressed out. And I remember what she said to me. She looked at me and she said, "Mimi, you teach women all over about balance and about taking care of themselves. And I love you, but right now you really suck at it."
Wow. From the mouths of babes. Wow.
And it's
probably hit right smack dab in your chest, didn't it?
Oh, it was like, you know what? You're right. You're right.
Good.
Right now I am failing miserably. And you can find ways of justifying that. You can find ways of saying, yeah, but, and it always comes back. So, being full disclosure, confession time, that is probably one of the things I struggle with the most. And it's just because I remember the first presentation that I did after my heart attack. I was invited to come and speak for a women's group. And there was probably about 75 people, 75 women in the room at the time. And this was my first, as heart to heart. And when it opened up for Q&A time, a lady raised her hand and she said, "I want to know, what changed for you after your heart attack?" I thought, wow, what a question. And I said, you know what? It's very hard for me to take things for granted, because I realize I survived when a lot of women don't at my age. And and I said, for me, it's not taking those moments for granted and feeling like I need to do everything I can every day to keep other women from going through what I did or worse. And I said, and so I thought about that when my granddaughter made that comment, and I thought, yeah, because there's still that drive every day. And there are days when you get weary. There are days when you just go, why did I do this? And then I get a phone call or I get an email of maybe a woman who was standing in her kitchen, and all she said to her husband was, "My left arm feels funny." And then she was gone at age 53. And I'm just like, okay, back to work. We can't let up. We've got to win this fight. And so I think for a lot of us, that self-care of making time for ourselves every day, of making time to exercise, I'm the world's worst. I'll be honest, because there's always something else that needs to be done. And it's like, but can I answer emails while I'm on the bike? Can I multitask? And I think that's what a lot of women, a lot of women will struggle with. And so thank you for being so candid, about your experience, because like I said, your story is going to touch people that, I'll never be able to. And it's such an encouragement that you went through it and you were able, to come out on the other side. And if you guys see me, by the way, looking down at my phone, it's not because I'm ignoring. I'm actually answering questions on the Facebook page as people are coming through watching this live feed. So that's why I look down every now and then. So what I'd like to do in our last few minutes together here, we've got about 20 minutes left, is to open it up. So if anybody watching the live stream on Facebook, if you do have a question for Heather or for myself, feel free to ask it and post it in the stream there. I'm saying hello as people are joining us and watching from wherever they are. We'll be happy to answer those questions. But
you had mentioned about your granddaughter.
Yes.
I wanted to let you know, it was kind of funny. My daughter and I were looking through pictures the other day of just still photos. And she said, Mom, can I say something? And I said, yeah. She said, when I'm sitting on your lap and I'm like 1.5. And I said, you mean the trying years? She said, yes. And she said, you look much younger now than you did then. And I said, that's what stress will do to you. It'll wear you out and it'll make you look older. And that is why you need to take care of yourself. And she said, well, I just want to let you know, you look a lot better now than you did then. And I was like, oh, aren't you sweet? But it really kind of hit home that how drastic my face shape changed, not even weight and all of that, but the shape of my face changed too. So yeah, I get it now.
I agree. And for what all that stress does to your outside, imagine what that stress is doing on the inside. And I remember telling someone one time after my heart attack, and I was past cardiac rehab, that I really did not know how bad I felt until I felt good again. Mm-hmm. When I was in ICU, they kept coming in telling me that I needed to rest. All I wanted to do was to get up and run, because I had chronic debilitating fatigue for about 18 months. And I was not functioning. I was barely surviving. And when we got that blockage opened and I, past the heart attack, I was like, let me go. I was like revving engine ready to go. And it took all anybody could do to get me to rest. Yeah. And I've had to learn that balance, and I've had to learn to listen to my body, that when it's enough, it's enough. And it's okay. We had this conversation in our Red Heart Mamas group the other day. It is okay to put yourself first. It is okay if you need to sit down and rest, to say, I need to sit down and rest. I think a lot of the guilt that we feel is self-imposed. I think there's pressure from society about what we do and what we don't do, that slowing down or taking a break is somehow seen as weak, and it's not. And I think we need to give ourselves permission to put on our tiaras and say, right now, the queen is taking a break. I'm going to go sit over here, or I'm going to go get in a bubble bath, or I'm going for a walk, or whatever you do that helps you decompress. And it makes you like you said, a better mother, a better wife, a better employee, because you have that time to process and decompress. And, I said one time that, before my heart attack, if you remember the story Alice in Wonderland, where she had said, I've lost my muchness.
Yes, that's how I felt. That. Yep, I completely understand that.
So we got to get our muchness back. So let me check and see if there are any questions. I don't see any yet. All right, so you have gone through, oh my gosh, so much at such a young age for you and your husband then, and your daughter. What happens next? How did you, we call it pulling up our big girl panties, how did you, what did you do from that point on?
Because she was so little, a lot of it was just being focused on being a single mom and making sure that we were in the right space and better. And then funny enough, in 2010, I had a bike accident and had a brain injury. And so that was my moment of, I need to be grateful for everything I have. You know what I mean? I had this all this stuff going on when she was teeny tiny, and now she's 3 years old. We're a little older, and now it's my turn that we could have lost everything. So the gratitude I've had in the last 10 years, 11 years now, has been amazing. The mindset has definitely been a big thing. And just growing in my faith and putting people around me that not necessarily have similar stories, but have similar compassion. You know what I mean? And so, and also just trying to, anybody I meet, I want them to walk away with better than where we found them. Even if it's a smile, a good morning, respect, whatever that is, it could be 20 seconds, it could be 20 years, just to leave somebody with a better impression of increase of their day before they met me. And so that has been kind of my mantra, but it's also shaped my life in the last 6-7 years too. So.
And you started a business that makes people happy.
Yes, also about
cool.
Self-care. Yes, exactly. So that started as a complete bucket list item. I was in corporate America. I have an HR background and an IT project management background. I was working the evenings so that my daughter could go to school and we didn't have to worry about daycare and all that. And I was working from home, but during the day I was bored out of my mind. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have any mommy friends. We're here kind of new. What am I going to do with myself? And so I had watched, you'll probably appreciate this, Christian Slater has a movie called Bed of Roses, and he was a stockbroker that turned florist. But in that movie, he makes a comment about you can't put a price on somebody's face when they get unexpected flowers. And I thought, I want to see that. I want to see what that looks like when everybody's just, I got flowers kind of thing. And so I volunteered with an organization that's up in Uptown Charlotte and said, hey, I'm kind of doing Uber on the side, like something to do and social. Do you need help with Valentine's Day? And he was all over it. Of course, get the help, that you need. And within 24 hours after dropping these flowers off, I was amazed. I was so involved in it. And it progressed naturally that I was mentoring under him, and I mentored on another florist that's local in town, got perspective of both retail and the whole event side of it. And it just kind of fell together. But the part that got me was being in the corporate world. You're kind of, I work from home, so I'm kind of isolated. I work with I was in IT. I worked with a bunch of very nerdy people. They're very sweet, but there's no social interaction, right? It's do your thing, get it off. We were done. So the florist that was uptown had a client who was a financial advisor. And every woman that was a client over 18 years of age, he would send a small arrangement of flowers to them on their birthday. And so I started paying attention. I was like, he's spending a lot of money. Like, what is going on that he sees that I don't? And basically what I found out is some of those were widows. Some of those ladies nobody else thought of them. And he was the only one. And he said, well, yeah, I spent a ton of money, but I made 5 or 6 times more because these people now were investing in him. And he was building that relationship simply by saying, I value you and who you are. And the light bulb just went doing. And so things worked out where I could kind of start my own. And we are all about appreciation. Our tagline is appreciation, not obligation. I don't want anybody coming in here and going, I have to buy flowers. It should be more about, I am buying somebody flowers to send to be the messenger. This is, so because of that, we have a custom design. So everything we do is based on their personality. You're going to send flowers to your daughter-in-law. I'm going to ask you pointed questions about them so that every time they walk by them, they not only think of you, but they also think of why, And so that was kind of the whole idea of Awesome Blossoms. My daughter came up with the name, which I thought was really sweet. And our motto is we put the awe back in every arrangement. Because when you get flowers, what do? Aw. And so it's been It started in my single car garage about 3 years ago. The end of this month will be 3 years ago. And we are now getting ready to get into a studio the first part of March. So we have grown really well. But last year, COVID was really everything that I stand for was all it came to life because people realized they couldn't see their friends anymore and they couldn't. So we did all kinds of campaigns to bring people back together, to connect them through social media and through flowers. It was just wonderful. And it really kind of helped us get on the map that we could continue doing what we're doing. And now I love it. I can't imagine not designing any day.
And you did that, and I'm going to call the title wrong, I know, but I remember seeing this on Facebook, and that's where I first heard about you, because when you and I talked, I went, yeah, you're the outfit that did the, for the heroes, the bouquets.
Yes, so we did a Hug a Hero project.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Social distancing girl time in the spring, and then that turned into Hug a Hero. So both ideas were to connect the community. The first one was social distancing girl time, so you got a little bitty arrangement, and you could buy up to 4 at the same time, and we would deliver it for one fee. They took a selfie, smiled with their picture, sent it back to the person who sent it to them, so she got to see all of her friends at one time, smiling, happy, kind of like a girl's day. And then that took off so well, we changed it at the end of the year and called it the Holiday Hug Project. So the community could do that. Now they were buying Christmas flowers and stuff like that. Hey, would you like to support the Holiday Hug Project? And those little arrangements went to people on the front lines in urgent care and hospitals who had to work Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, or to assisted living facilities that were elderly care and they couldn't see their families because of COVID. And we didn't get as much, it was kind of a last minute, hey, let's do this. And we got a good response for the last minute, but next year I would love to do it as a bigger, longer campaign type of thing. But it really was a lot of fun to do and take these things and to see, again, see their faces of, I got flowers. It didn't matter how big, how small, it just that somebody thought of them was what was touching at the time.
And I wanted to thank you because you have graciously donated to our Queen of Hearts Gala online auction. So before I let you go, tell us about your donation, because I know a lot of people are going to be fighting over this one.
So this one is a little bit about self-care, but you can have the option to give it to somebody else if you want. There is 6 months worth of $85 arrangements. So an $85 arrangement each month. You get to decide who it goes to. If you want to send it to yourself that month, we can do that. If you want to send it to somebody next door who's maybe having a harder time, we can do that too. If your best friend is having a birthday, it doesn't matter. We'll contact you about the same time every month. Hey, your arrangement's ready to go. Who do you want it to send to? Tell us a little bit about them. If it's you, obviously we already have our notes on you, what's going on. And then just what do you want the card message to say? We send it out. You get a picture of it before we deliver it. You get an email once it's been confirmed, and you won 6 months of arrangements to send to your friends or yourself.
That is fabulous. Now, what is your delivery radius?
We pretty much have the southwest corner of 485. That's probably the best way to explain it. So the western part of Ballantyne, kind of down into Indian Land, go over to Rock Hill, all the way up through Fort Mill, and then kind of up over Clover, where Rock Hill and Clover meet at 274. So if you did a big square, kind of Ballantyne, Waxhaw, over through Indian Land, up through Rock Hill, through Clover, and back on over is kind of where we're at.
I like that. Through Clover and back on over. They should adopt that. That's clever. That is awesome. I tell you, because we will be doing our sneak preview for the gala guests starting this coming Saturday on February the 6th. And AmFund, who is our online auction sponsor, saw that the other day. And our representative with them said, "I'm bidding on that."
That's awesome.
She's not in this area, but she's like, that's going to be such a popular item. And I said, wait till you see her flowers. So we know that Valentine's is coming up, and then there's always, and my husband is very good at the just because.
Which I tell everybody, they mean a heck of a lot more at the just because than they do when everybody else is getting flowers.
Yeah.
So if you send them out a Wednesday in August, you're going to get a lot more feedback than you would if you sent them on Valentine's Day. Not that we don't want Valentine's Day, but
unless that Wednesday in August just happens to be our wedding anniversary, and then that's okay too.
But he needs to do bigger, right? Make a splash.
So let us, as we are coming to a close, how do we get in touch with you if somebody is interested in learning more about Awesome Blossoms?
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. So it's awesomeblossoms.florist is the website, and you can go right online. We are not affiliated with a wire service, so everything you see on there, I actually have designed or my designers have done. It's not stock photos. It's not wash, rinse, repeat. It really is custom. So just keep that in mind, that everything is kind of inspiration, not necessarily a repeat, that we can do over and over again. So you can go to awesomeblossoms.florist, or you can go to Facebook, which is Awesome Blossoms CLT. That'll also lead you to different Instagram pages. We have one that's weddings and events, so Awesome Blossoms Events. And then we have one that's just our dailies, Awesome Blossoms Floral Studio. We're kind of all over the place. And then the number is 803-431-1233. My team is ready. We are so excited. I'm thinking that this year might actually be fairly decent because nobody can see each other again. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see how that goes. But it's not just romantic. We do a lot of Galentine's Day, friends and things like that for different arrangements. We have a wide variety of what we can do. But I'm just excited that we can be a part of your gala and all the things, and that we've gotten to know each other. And I love your story. And I'm just so thankful that you've asked me to be a part of this.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's going to touch hearts, and that's what it's all about. And of course, for your donation. And again, if you want more information about the Queen of Hearts Gala, just go to queenofheartsgala.org. That's pretty easy. And we hope you get a chance. But thank you, Heather. I'm going to close this out here because our time is quickly coming to an end. Thank you so much for joining us today for Tiara Tuesdays. We'll have another guest next Tuesday, so feel free to take a look at our Facebook event page, and you can sign up there to participate if you want to participate with us via Zoom, or if you want to watch the program on Facebook Live or on our YouTube channel, you are welcome to do that. If you have any questions or if you want more information, you can leave that for us and post your question or comments in this feed. Also, don't forget to visit us online at the hearttoheartfoundation.org. Like us and follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those are the best ways of getting in touch with you, with us. So we are at a close, and the last thing I want to leave you with is simply this. Remember that the better you love your heart, the longer it can love you back. Thanks, and happy Heart Month.